Let's take you from the Middle East away for a moment to Austria, where a far-right party founded by a former Nazi celebrated its first ever election win in Austria overnight. The Freedom Party leader Herbert Kickl campaigned heavily against illegal immigration. He claims to be trying to build what he calls Fortress Austria, but the party is short of a majority. Other parties, including the Conservatives, forming a political fortress around him, trying to prevent him being the next Chancellor. However, some have said without him as Chancellor, they wouldn't rule out working with the party. That's from the Conservatives. We're going to look at the dynamics at play in a moment. Let's first hear from the victorious leader.
We've opened the door to a new era. We're going to write this chapter in Austrian history together. We've internalised the principle that the people come first and then the Chancellor. I had the feeling during the discussions with the others, I don't know, they were in a state of shock and acted as if this election hadn't happened. I'll give them another 2 or 3 days to think about it. Then, let's hope they come to their senses. It would be in their own interests. I would like to say that now.
OK, let's explore this a little further. Jacques Rupnik is a historian, research director at the University of Science and Politics here in Paris. Science poet, it's known, specialist as well on Central Europe. Great to have you on the programme tonight, Jack. First of all, aside from the fact we're talking about this party having roots to former Nazis, they've tried to detoxify, perhaps similar to what we hear about with the National Rally here in France. But what makes them right now considered far-right?
Essentially, their stance on immigration. They really represent the hard right. I mean, immigration is a big theme of debate in politics throughout Europe. But the Austrian party, which has just won the Austrian election, has taken a very hard line on that. Basically, it's, love Austria or leave it. And we will stop immigration completely, etc., etc. So very, very hard line on immigration. That's one thing. And there is an undertone of Euroscepticism, which is relatively new because in Austria there used to be a consensus about Europe. But there is the idea that Europe allows this migration issue, the open borders, that it is not unable to deal with migration. So this is what makes them special, not just the background. You mentioned the post-wars, some of the former Nazis that created the parties, but that was way back in the 1950s. What I think Austrian Freedom Party, as it's called, it's hard right, but it's called itself Freedom Party. What is unique about them is that they were the first to start a coalition with the moderate right. And that was back at the end of 1999, when Haider, their leader, made a coalition with the Christian party, the ÖVP, the People's Party, Mr. Schussel. And Schussel, as prime minister, was then very harshly criticized throughout Europe. He was ostracized, and this was presented then as a very unique case that should be set apart the rest of Europe. Well, if you look at the European landscape today, you have other very similar parties winning elections and even running governments. I mean, you have Viktor Orbán neighboring Hungary. You have
Well, it's a good point. And let's briefly pick it up there, because I just want your view. There are opposition activists, there are politicians saying they don't want Austria to go the way of Hungary and the way it deals with migration. Its views, the illiberal democracy, as Viktor Orbán called it. So where do you see this going? It's a difficult question to answer, but if the Conservatives won't work with him as leader, is there a chance they will still work with the party?
Well, that may well happen, because the leader of the People's Party said, I don't want to work with Kickl. There's no way I will make a coalition with him. But that, at least in theory, doesn't rule out a coalition with the party. And then it would simply mean Kickl has to stand back. In fact, he said in the quote you just started with, the people come first, then the chancellor. Well, he will not be the chancellor. He's the winner of the election. The people come first, and his party won the election, and he would make a coalition. So that could be one solution, not the most likely one. There is another option, which the Austrians are also very familiar with, and that is the Grand Coalition. That is the People's Party, the center-right, if you want, making a coalition with the Social Democrats. Yeah. That was a dominant formula in Austrian politics for many years. Chancellor Kreisky, who was the leader of the Social Democrats, was called the Kaiser, etc. So it's not impossible that the two big parties, both of them have been losing in this election, but they may get together. They have enough votes to form a coalition.
Jack, a delight, as always, to talk to you. I hope to speak to you again soon. Jacques Rupnik, often on the money, always on the ball at Sciences Po University, and historian specialist on Eastern Europe. Stay with us here on France 24. We'll be back in just a moment.